I didn't actually realize this was a Conjuring Universe movie. Granted, I should have been suspicious when James Wan ended up producing this film and it was a supernatural film, but yeah, I didn't realize it until about halfway through the movie when they mentioned Annabelle. And out of all the side movies that are part of the Conjuring universe, this is one of the better ones. But then again, out of the side movies, the only one that's been good is Annabelle Creation. Annabelle was pretty damn terrible. The Nun was very disappointing. And this was better than those two movies. Like I said, The Curse of La Llorona is part of the Conjuring universe. In this film, we've got a single mom whose husband died. He was a police officer, and now she's raising two kids while she's a caseworker. Now, two children that she looks after as part of her job, there's some suspect that they could be being abused by their mother. She goes in to investigate. The mother seems crazy. The two children are locked in a closet, and so she tries to save the kids by taking them away from their mother, and you know how it goes. Now, of course, the children aren't being abused by the suspected mother, but the Curse of La Llorona, who is trying to kill them, trying to take them and drown them. And because they're taken out of the house, because they're separated from the mother, La Llorona takes care of the children, kills them, and now the curse is passed on to our main character and her two children. And now they're going to have to deal with it and try to figure out how to break the curse and take care of this supernatural threat. Now, as far as the spin-off movies go from the Conjuring films, this one's the second best, but then again, there's only been 4, and only one of those 4 has been really good, which, like I said, was Annabelle Creation. I really enjoyed that one. Now, just because I say it's better than The Nun, and way better than the first Annabelle movie, that doesn't make it good. At best, this movie is pretty average when it comes to horror movies. There were definitely some things I liked about it. For one, even though I didn't like the characters all that much, or the characters were more stereotypical characters in horror movies that sometimes make horrible, terrible decisions, I thought the acting from all the characters was decent and serviceable. I also liked the cinematography of the film. There's some really good shots and some really creepy moments. In fact, this movie is filled with moments that are actually pretty good and really creepy, or at least they are in individual spurts. Now, granted, some of these creepy moments are very cliched and have been done before in other horror movies, far superior horror movies, but they did it effectively in the movie, and I did like those creepy moments, even though the overall experience of the movie wasn't creepy. It was just creepy in spurts. And I will say I didn't like that the trailer gave away probably 80% of the creepy scenes in the movie, which is unfortunate because now I see the scares coming, and I'm not even scared of the jump scare moments because I see them a mile away thanks to the trailer and thanks to some of the setup of these jump scares that are just too telegraphed. I like the tale of La Llorona, and I think that's pretty neat to have in a mainstream movie. I'm a horror fan, and when obscure horror happens in a mainstream film, I do appreciate it, whether it does it justice or not. And I thought La Llorona was actually creepier than The Nun, in my opinion. Or at least the Nun in The Nun. The Nun's still creepy in The Conjuring too. But, I don't know, she's not as scary as she is in the movie that is based off of her. I thought La Llorona was actually pretty creepy. The makeup for it and the visual effects for her was pretty terrifying. And the fact that she kills only children is creepy and disturbing in of itself. There's several ideas in the movie that I do like and appreciate. I just wish they were executed better. There's a character towards the end that becomes a vital character, and he is a former priest that's more of a spiritual exorcist by now. And the whole concept of that character was very unique and intriguing. I just wish they would have executed it better. That was more entertaining. Don't get me wrong, I liked the character, and it was probably the only character I liked, or at least the character I liked the most in the film. It's just, he could have still been better. Another thing, another really big opportunity that the movie had was to try to have La Llorona be more of a metaphor of child abuse. You know, the kind of horror movie that has a supernatural threat, but it is a metaphor for a real horror that happens in the world. And there's plenty of horror movies, really artsy horror movies and really great horror movies that do this. And it could have been done in La Llorona, but, well, it's almost like they start it that way and then stop halfway through and decide, oh no, we want to be a dumb, scary, intense, supernatural film now. Okay. You blew any sort of setup that you might have had to be something a little bit more than just a supernatural horror film, but at least it was still fun by the second half. The second half, when it got to a dumb supernatural horror movie, it was at least entertaining. I just wish that it would have not gone that route at the same time, because they had something smart in there, but they just didn't know how to develop it, I feel, and then just went off the rails. Which is kind of like what happened to the new Pet Sematary. La Llorona and Pet Sematary have a lot of things similar in the structure and how I feel about the films. Another thing I didn't like in the film, particularly in the first half of the film, both the kids and the mother were pretty damn stupid. Now look, what I'm about to say is probably pretty cliched, but I feel that most horror movies are structured in this way, especially horror movies revolving around families and children in particular. But there's a reason why it's structured this way and why this happens. Normally, when something supernatural or something terrifying is happening to the kids in the film, they immediately tell their parents. Parents don't believe them until finally something supernatural happens, and then the parent goes, oh, well, I guess you were right, we better deal with this. Again, it's cliched, but it's structured nicely in that way, unlike La Llorona, because the way it happens in La Llorona just doesn't feel natural. When the supernatural things start occurring to the children in the movie, not a single goddamn one of them says anything to their mother. Now look, I can understand if they thought maybe, oh, this is all in our head, or maybe she won't believe us, but the mother gave no indication that she wouldn't believe them, and physical things start happening to them, such as whenever La Llorona touches them and curses them, their wrist burns with finger imprints of La Llorona. I feel that by the time something is physically happening to these kids, they should probably talk to their mother, especially since it's not their mother doing it, but a supernatural being. That does not happen in the film. Hell, even when it starts happening to the mother, she doesn't talk to her kids about it until finally something happens when all three of them are in the same room together. And it felt like, okay, you're telling each other now? We're about halfway through the movie. Now look, it probably was trying to be more metaphorical with parental abuse or child abuse from parents, and how kids will try to not tell on their parents and just say nothing. I can see if the movie was trying to go in that route, but when they abandon that thing altogether halfway through the film, it just makes those moments where they don't tell the mother and the mother doesn't tell them a little stupid. Especially since sometimes they're very nonchalant until they're grabbed and burned. Also, there's this moment towards the very end of the film where I feel the editing was almost made like a trailer, and it just didn't work for me. It was this moment where it looks like La Llorona is stepping into the house, and so it keeps cutting back and forth between La Llorona walking through the house, the kids in the closet, and then also the mother and the spiritual exorcist drinking coffee in an office. And every time it cuts away to all three of these things, like it fades out, you see a lot of black, and then it fades in, and then it fades out, a lot of black, fades in, and it's stylistic, but for me it was a little stupid. It just didn't quite work for me. And I understand them not showing too much because you find out that it's a bit more of a twist where it's not really La Llorona. But I think you still could have not cut it up in that way and still be suspenseful and not show everything. In the end, I do kind of like La Llorona, but at the same time, it's overall pretty average horror movie. So I'm going to give The Curse of La Llorona 2.5 stars. Now, granted, I am a horror movie fan, so keep that in mind that sometimes I'm a little bit more lenient on horror movies. So this movie is probably more like a 2 star out of 5 rather than a 2.5, but that's just me. So, did you see The Curse of La Llorona? What do you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this movie and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews or countdowns of this year, of previous years, of whatever. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.